December 1944. The Screaming Eagles were dying. Surrounded at Bastogne, ammunition nearly gone, medical supplies exhausted, German tanks closing from every direction. Hitler had personally ordered their complete destruction. The weather was so brutal that Allied planes couldn't fly. No reinforcements, no resupply, no escape. Over 10,000 American paratroopers trapped in a frozen Belgian town that nobody had heard of just days before, now facing annihilation. But one man refused to believe they were doomed. This is the moment Dwight Eisenhower realized George Patton might be the only general alive who could pull off the impossible, and what he said when Patton actually did it. A story about desperate men, impossible odds, and the phone call that changed everything. The 101st Airborne had maybe 4 days left before they'd be overrun. This is what happened next. December 19th, 1944. Supreme Headquarters was dead silent except for officers delivering one piece of bad news after another. German forces had smashed through American lines in the Ardennes, chaos spreading across a 50-mile front. But the worst situation was Bastogne. This little Belgian crossroads town had become the most critical position in Europe overnight. The 101st Airborne Division, America's elite paratroopers, was completely surrounded along with scattered elements from other units. More than 10,000 soldiers trapped with nowhere to run. German forces outnumbered them almost 3-1. The weather had grounded every Allied aircraft, which meant no airdrops, no close support, nothing. These paratroopers relied on air support to survive, and now that lifeline was cut. Eisenhower stood studying the maps, his face drawn and exhausted. He hadn't really slept since the German offensive started. Intelligence officers kept briefing him on the 101st situation, and every single update was worse. Ammunition rationed down to 10 rounds per man. Artillery shells almost gone. Medical supplies running dry. Wounded soldiers freezing in cellars because there was literally nowhere else to put them. German attacks getting stronger by the hour. Eisenhower finally asked the question everyone was thinking. How long can they hold? The intelligence officer hesitated before answering. Sir, realistically 4 to 5 days, maybe a week if luck is on their side. After that they'll be completely out of ammunition and supplies. The Germans will overrun the position. Eisenhower's jaw clenched hard. Losing an entire airborne division would be a military disaster beyond measure. These weren't just any troops. These were the men who jumped into Normandy on D-Day, fought through hell in Operation Market Garden, earned legendary status across the entire army. If they got wiped out at Bastogne, the psychological damage to Allied morale would be catastrophic. What are our options for getting them out? Eisenhower demanded. His staff laid out the grim reality. British forces under Montgomery were holding the northern part of the German breakthrough, but couldn't attack south toward Bastogne quickly enough. Other American units were locked in desperate defensive battles of their own. Nobody had the strength or the position to launch an immediate relief operation. Nobody except Third Army, currently engaged in fighting 100 miles south in the Saar region. That meant Patton. It always came back to Patton. Eisenhower had spent years managing George Patton's brilliance, his massive ego, his controversies, his insubordination. Their relationship was absolutely exhausting. But now, staring at that map showing 10,000 surrounded Americans, Eisenhower realized something uncomfortable. Patton might be the only general in the entire Allied command capable of pulling off the kind of impossible maneuver needed to save those men. "Get me Patton," Eisenhower ordered. "Tell him I need him at Verdun tomorrow for an emergency conference. Tell him to bring plans for offensive operations. He'll understand what that means." After his staff cleared out, Eisenhower stood. alone in that situation room. His aide Harry Butcher later recorded that Eisenhower whispered to himself something like this: "George, for once in this goddamn war, do exactly what I need you to do. Those paratroopers are counting on you. America is counting on you. I'm counting on you. Don't let me down." The meeting at Verdun the next day has become legendary in military history. The moment Patton made the promise that changed everything. But what often gets overlooked is Eisenhower's reaction, his actual words, and the weight of the decision he made that day. The atmosphere was incredibly tense when everyone gathered. Eisenhower opened by trying to maintain confidence, saying the present situation should be regarded as an opportunity for us and not a disaster. But everyone in that room knew this was the worst crisis the Allies had faced since D-Day itself. Then Eisenhower turned to his assembled generals with a direct question: how quickly can we mount a relief operation to reach Bastogne? Most of the generals started mentally calculating logistics, supply lines, troop availability, working through the numbers. Then Patton spoke up with absolute certainty: "I can attack on the 22nd with 3 divisions." Complete silence. Other generals exchanged glances. Was Patton serious, or was this just his usual grandstanding? To disengage from active combat, rotate his entire army 90 degrees, move over 100 miles through brutal winter conditions, and launch a coordinated attack in 72 hours was beyond anything attempted in modern warfare. Eisenhower's eyes locked onto Patton. His response, recorded by multiple witnesses, was measured and deadly serious. "George, I'm not asking for optimism here. I'm not asking for what might be theoretically possible. I'm asking what you can actually, genuinely accomplish. The lives of 10,000 American soldiers depend on your answer right now. The men of the 101st Airborne are surrounded, outnumbered, running out of everything. If you say you'll be there and you're not, they die. All of them. So I'll ask you again. Can you attack on December 22nd? Patton didn't even hesitate. I've already got 3 plans prepared. My staff anticipated this meeting. We've wargamed the contingencies. On December 22nd, my 4th Armored Division will attack north toward Bastogne. This isn't a promise, it's a fact." Eisenhower studied Patton's face carefully, searching for the usual bravado, the exaggeration, the showmanship. Instead, he saw cold certainty. Patton had actually prepared for this scenario before the meeting even happened. That level of foresight impressed even Eisenhower. "All right, George, you've got your mission. Relieve Bastogne. You have complete operational freedom to execute however you see fit. But understand this." Eisenhower leaned forward, his voice dropping to a tone his staff rarely heard. "If you fail, if those paratroopers are lost because you couldn't deliver what you just promised, I will personally see that you never command troops again. Not just relief from 3rd Army. End of your career. Am I perfectly clear?" "Crystal clear, sir," Patton replied. "I won't fail." After the meeting ended, Eisenhower pulled aside his chief of staff, General Walter Bedell Smith. Smith's diary records what happened next. "The boss asked me if I thought George could actually do it. I said it seemed impossible. I said that's exactly why I'm sending Patton. Impossible is what he does." From December 20th to the 25th, while Patton's 3rd Army executed its massive pivot north, Eisenhower endured the most stressful week of his entire command. Every few hours situation reports arrived from Bastogne, and each one was grimmer than the last. December 21st. German artillery pounding American positions without stopping. Casualties mounting by the hour. The 101st Airborne Commander General Anthony McAuliffe sent his famous one-word reply to a German surrender demand. Nuts. When Eisenhower read that report, he allowed himself a brief smile. "At least their spirit isn't broken," he told his staff. December 22nd. Patton's forces attacked exactly as promised, but progress was agonizingly slow. Winter conditions, determined German resistance, brutal terrain, everything working against them. Meanwhile, at Bastogne, the situation was critical. Ammunition down to 5 rounds per rifle in some units. Medical supplies almost completely exhausted. Wounded men dying simply from lack of treatment. Eisenhower sent a message to McAuliffe. Hold at all costs. Relief is coming. But privately, he confided to his diary something much darker. I gave George the green light because I had absolutely no choice. Now I'm watching the clock, watching the maps, praying he reaches Bastogne before it's too late. Every hour that passes, more paratroopers die. If George doesn't break through, their blood is on my hands for trusting him. December 23rd. The weather cleared just enough for air resupply. C-47 transports managed to drop ammunition, medical supplies, food to the defenders. It bought some time, but not much. German attacks intensified dramatically. The perimeter kept shrinking. Some positions got overrun. Hand-to-hand fighting in the frozen streets. Eisenhower received intelligence that German forces were preparing a massive final assault to crush Bastogne's defenders once and for all. Hitler had personally ordered the town's capture at any cost. Eisenhower sent an urgent message to Patton. George, I need maximum effort now. The 101st can't hold much longer. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Eisenhower spent the entire evening in his office, unable to rest. Staff officers noted he looked 10 years older than he had just a week before. Reports showed Third Army still fighting toward Bastogne, still miles away. At the current pace, they might not arrive in time. Eisenhower started composing messages to families of the 101st Airborne, letters he would have to send if the paratroopers were lost. He wrote to McAuliffe's wife, to the division chaplain's family, to families of men he'd personally spoken with before they deployed. His aide found him late that night, surrounded by unfinished condolence letters. Eisenhower looked up and said simply, I hope I don't have to send these. December 25th, Christmas Day. Still no breakthrough. Eisenhower attended chapel service, but couldn't focus on anything. He kept checking for messages every 15 minutes. Nothing. The 101st was still surrounded. Third Army still fighting to reach them. Time running out fast. Then came December 26th, 1944. 4:50 in the afternoon. The phone rang. Eisenhower's aide answered, listened for a moment, then turned pale. Sir, it's General Patton. He says it's urgent. Eisenhower grabbed that phone. George. Ike. We're through. 4th Armored made contact with the 101st at 1650 hours. The corridor is narrow, but it's open. We're pushing supplies and reinforcements through right now. Bastogne is relieved. For several seconds, Eisenhower couldn't speak. His hand gripped the phone so tight his knuckles turned white. Staff officers in the room watched their supreme commander's face completely transform. Tension releasing, shoulders dropping, eyes closing briefly. George, say that again. We're through to Bastogne. The Screaming Eagles are safe. They're battered to hell, but they held their ground. We got there in time. When Eisenhower finally spoke, his voice cracked with emotion. George, I thank God. Thank you. You did it. You saved them. There was a pause on the line. Patton, never comfortable with sentiment, responded gruffly. Just doing my job, Ike. Those paratroopers did the real work. We just knocked on the door. No, George, don't diminish this. You moved an entire army 90 degrees in a blizzard and broke through German lines in 4 days. That's not just doing your job. That's Eisenhower's search for the right words. That's why you're invaluable. Despite everything, all our conflicts, this is exactly why. After hanging up, Eisenhower stood completely motionless for a moment. Then he turned to his staff, and witnesses recorded what happened next. His eyes were wet with tears he didn't bother hiding. He said, "Gentlemen, General Patton has just accomplished something I will remember for the rest of my life. He saved 10,000 American soldiers who were hours, maybe minutes from annihilation. He did exactly what I asked him to do, when I asked him to do it, against odds everyone said were impossible. George Patton is the most difficult subordinate I have ever commanded. He is also without question one of the finest battlefield commanders America has ever produced." Eisenhower immediately sent official messages everywhere. To the 101st Airborne congratulating their heroic defense. To 3rd Army commending their relief operation. To the War Department reporting Bastogne's relief. But he also sent a personal telegram to Patton that revealed everything. "George, words cannot adequately express my gratitude and admiration for what 3rd Army accomplished. You gave your word you would be there. You kept that word. In doing so, you saved not just 10,000 soldiers, but possibly the entire Ardennes campaign. Well done does not begin to cover it. This operation will be studied for generations as an example of operational excellence. I am proud to have you under my command. Ike." That evening, Eisenhower's personal aide found him alone, staring at the map showing the narrow corridor to Bastogne. Eisenhower said quietly, "For more hours." That's all George had. For more hours, and the 101st would have been overrun. He made it with 4 hours to spare. 4 hours between salvation and complete annihilation.